Okay, we got video, so just do a big yawn, big stretch. There we go. That's the thumbnail. We're testing out video today. We're recording it. I don't know if it's going to go out or not. Basically, we're just seeing if the software we use will handle us making...
I'm on the right mic? I want to make sure I'm on the right mic.
That was really loud, though.
Sorry.
So we're testing out video. How's it going?
Oh,
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm achy. I'm really achy.
From being old?
Being old, firstly from being old, but secondly from just working so physically hard.
No.
I've been working, but it's okay. I like it. I'm not complaining at all. I welcome hard work. I feel like I've gotten a lot done. When in the morning I can't move. It's great.
So, well, we were talking earlier about you being on the bike a lot. Like you're doing a lot of that. Is that what you're talking about, or are you physically like working on the house, or what's the...
Well, no, I'll work all day long in the yard, in the house. I'm actually putting a second floor in the horse barn, framing the horse barn with help from time to time. But I'm doing the upstairs floor by myself, only because it's difficult to move around and there's just open joists, and I'm doing it myself because I have a method, and I just rather work alone. And so I'm doing the floor upstairs by myself. And these timbers are 1.5 inches thick by 16 feet long by 8 inches wide. And every time you pick one up, you have to like stop and think for a minute. You're like, okay, I have to pick this up. It's 16 feet long. I got to swing it around. Somehow I started the floor in the wrong direction. So every single board I pick up, I have to do a 180 with. So the tongue and goes in the other direction. So every single board I pick up has to get flipped 180, and then I got to put it in place, mark it against the nearest closest joist, and cut it. And so I'm doing that. And then I'm also working over at the graveyard house, doing a lot of work at the graveyard house. And it's all just on hands and knees and up on a ladder, and it's all physical stuff. But I welcome it. I'm not complaining in any way. But in the morning I wake up, and I'm like the Tin Man every morning. I have to slowly get out. It's like I'm like a moth being born every morning when I get out of bed. But I have about 4 minutes to go from is it cocoon? What do they call it? It's not a cocoon.
Cocoon, not a cocoon.
Cocoon, no. Is it a cocoon? Is that what the moth comes out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought I was saying the wrong word, but I know I was saying it awkwardly because I didn't know if it was
Cocoon.
So I got about 4 minutes to come out of the cocoon to like full spread wings. And it's usually the most painful 4 minutes of the day.
I've been doing this thing where I go for a 1 to 3 mile walk every morning, and it's within 5 minutes of waking up. Like I wake up,
That's cool.
I go to the bathroom, and then I am out the door before I can even think that I don't want to do it.
That's cool.
I've been doing that since mid-July.
That's cool.
Nice.
Walks are good. I was doing the walks before, obviously the bike, and I really enjoy doing the walks. The walks are really good to think. So I might, before it gets too cold out, I might start doing a couple here and there. Last night I went for a little bit of a walk, talking on the phone, just out, and I was like, I missed this. I got to do this again.
Yeah, I'm still stuck at running. I think I know it. I have my paths, if I need to run this mileage, I know that I can go to this place and that does it.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking like, I should start riding my bike some. We got some trails around here. I could do this, I could do that. I've got workout stuff. I should do some of that. And I just like default to running because it's just easy. I don't have to think about it, which, I don't enjoy it that much either, but at least it's easy to do. But I would like to kind of break it up, do some other stuff,
Yeah,
especially as it starts to get colder. But
yeah, we basically have a home gym now. We have an elliptical, we have a rowing machine, and then we just got a new one of those crazy bikes, a Soul Cycle bike. And I haven't done the bike thing much yet, but I know winter is coming, and my walks are gonna slowly fade away. So I want to start doing some more cardio stuff.
There's a slogan that somebody sent me in an email. It was just one of those memes that people send around. It wasn't anything specific, but in one of these things it said, when you think you don't have any more left, there's always more. When it comes to energy, they were kind of talking about energy and just, determination. And after a really long, hard day of moving flooring around and installing flooring and being down and up and down on my knees and up and down the ladder all day long, it's about 11 o'clock, and I think to myself, oh, now it's time. It's time for the bicycle. Do you really want to do this? And then like I have the devil and the angel on my shoulders going, do it, don't do it. You've worked hard enough today. You've earned your calories. Don't. Better get on the bike. You know how fat you are. You know, so like this starts happening at around 10:30, and I always go on the bike. The angel always wins, and I go on the bike, and I kick ass, and I feel good about it. I feel good about it after every time.
And it's honestly a workout like
happens.
that. It's a different kind of like muscle use than all of that other physical stuff you're doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it when you're in that like the angel
it's
on the
that
shoulder
cardio.
moment.
It's that cardio that I really don't have, because throughout the day I'm physically picking up stuff. Right, I might be building muscles like a lumberjack, but that cardio, which at my age I feel is important.
Yeah, at all ages, but yeah, especially when you're as old as you.
Oh.
Sorry, I mean I got to take my shots because I have to. You know. Anyway, well, David, what have you been up to?
A year ago, I tried to make some coffee mugs, and it was a terrible day. It was the worst day in the shop.
I remember that.
I had I think we tripped 2 saw stop blades because I accidentally cut into metal when I wasn't expecting to. I had a drill chuck go bad, and then I had a carbide cutter on a joiner break and fly out, and then a bandsaw blade broke. I was like, "This is an
expensive day."
It was a really expensive day. In that video, we tallied up everything, and what the bandsaw blade breaking was kind of like, okay, let's go take a break. Let's go to the store. Let's go get a new blade and some new carbide cutters, and just kind of reset. And on the way there, my brother was with me. It was just like, you know what? Let's just call it quits. The universe is trying to tell me something. It's not my day. I'm going to lose an arm or a leg or something. Something bad's going to happen. Let's just call it quits and just make a video out of this. And so fast forward a year later, we are recreating not that video, but that project. And everything worked this time. Nothing broke.
Oh.
No injuries, no saw stop breaks. Everything
Do you have
came out.
extras of every piece of equipment, replacement parts for each.
Yeah, so everything is good. So that's the next video, is making some wooden coffee mugs, which is kind of funny because this is my 3rd attempt at making wooden coffee mugs. The first one, I didn't know how to coat the inside. The first one is a really, really old video. Do not go watch. But I didn't know how to coat the inside. And so I asked my viewers, like, hey, what's a good way to coat the inside that's food safe? And then I got all these suggestions, but none of the suggestions was food safe for hot foods. There's different kinds of food safe. There's food safe for prep, and then there's food safe for I can't think of the other way, but like you can all finishes are food safe once fully cured. So like your tabletop with a polyurethane is technically food safe, but you don't want to cut on it because it'll chip off. And so for this one, we use some metal whiskey glasses and some Yeti style, and also some Yeti style coffee mugs. It's like a stainless steel with a lid. And so I made 4 of them with these inserts and just made wood that surrounded that. And it came out really good.
Oh, that sounds like a nice idea.
Yeah. I started with 4 thinking I'm going to screw 1 or 2 of them up. So as long as I can just get one, I'll have one for myself. But all 4 of them came out just fine.
Wow. So that's the same thing you did on the last one, right? Where you had the metal insert? Is it the same insert, the same process?
Same inserts, same process. This time I measured the inserts before boring out the wood and sticking it in there, and then trying to cut off the excess, because I didn't have the exact measurement of the inserts when I would go to cut the bottom. Like some of them would be turned on the lathe, some of them would be made on the drill, and then I would cut the excess off on the table saw, but I didn't. Where I thought I was cutting just wood, I also cut into the...
hit the blade.
Yeah.
You hit the metal, yeah.
And you do it once, and I didn't lose 2 stop brakes. I misspoke earlier. I tripped a brake once cutting into metal, and then the next time I went to go do it, I turned the brake off, just in case. But I'm like, I'm totally clear. There's no way I'm hitting metal. And I hit metal again, and I just saw sparks fly. So yeah.
Wow.
It's such a simple project, and it's caused me so much pain.
Well, that means it's not simple, though. If it was simple, then it would have been like easy. It's not easy, you know.
Yeah.
Well, that's I like, for instance, like Alex Steele picks these things to duplicate because there's complexity and simplicity. You just pick a wrench. I'm going to make a wrench over, and you realize how complicated.
Oh, that
everyday
ratchet and
objects
wrench
really
series is phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked when he made the climbing carabiner because I have a lot of experience with those throughout my life, and I never even considered how difficult it would be to make one, much less forge one, because why would you do that? But, you know, that was really, really cool to see. But, let's see. Well, for me, I don't know if this video is going to be out this weekend or probably will be next weekend because it's kind of running behind. But last week I was talking about the Picciuto thing, about the paper craft folding. And so what I'm doing with that is I like Transformers, always have. And so one of the things I've always wanted to do would be to build a life-size Transformer or part of a Transformer just to see how big they actually would be. So I decided with Halloween coming up, I was going to make Optimus Prime, the main good guy, I was going to make his head actual size and then make it a helmet so that I can wear it so I'll look like a bobblehead.
Oh, boy.
And so I found a template, a Picciuto template for this thing, and then did some math, which I'm curious how you would do this, Jimmy. I don't know why you specifically, but I thought about it this morning. I want to hear how you would go about this. But I sized up the template to actual size. It's flat, and then I cut it out on a laser and then assembled it so I have this giant head that is almost bigger than my shoulders.
Out of cardboard?
Yeah, out of cardboard. So how would you go about, if you had a template like that, and then you have a theoretical, I know this character is 22 feet tall. How would you go about getting the scale percentage for the template to match that overall size?
I pick one key thing in a photograph reference. So one key thing in a photograph. So if there's a photograph of Optimus Prime next to a counter is usually 30 inches tall. I would use that as a reference to see how tall anything else that is a key element in that object. So if it's a photograph and I could see that the counter, and then if there's like a thing on his face, and if it's half as high as like I'll do a little tick sheet, which is a piece of paper in that photograph, or if I'll bring it into Illustrator, and then I'll make like a box to say, okay, like I'll blow the picture up to where I could make a box in Illustrator. Let's say it's 30 millimeters, right? And to me, that's 30 inches, right? And I take that box that I've drawn that I know now in this little world of this image is 30 millimeters tall, and I'll drag it up to the face and find anything that's like a perfect half of that so that I know that that part is 15 inches or whatever. So that's usually what I'll do. I'll bring it into Illustrator. Or like I said, if it's a printout, which no longer is the case because we used to have printouts all the time, I would just do like a little tick sheet and be like, okay, that's 30 inches I know. And if I bring it up to an object on the face and it's half as high as my little tick, my two little marks on the edge of a piece of paper, I'm like, okay, that should be about 15 inches so that I know when I blow up my pattern, I'm only worried about that one element that's 15 inches, for instance. And then the rest of it falls where it may, and then I'll know that I'm in the right scale. That makes sense?
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much what I did.
Yeah.
I took a picture of him from the front into Photoshop, measured. I knew that he was supposed to be like 22 feet tall, top to bottom. So I found the proportion of his head height to his body, and then found that proportion within the 22 feet, and that gave me some number that I don't remember. And then I had to figure out how to do to get the scale of the template. So I had to measure, like his forehead has this shape on it, and so I used that, like you're talking about, I used that shape as the corresponding thing. So if it's this big on the picture and it's this big on the printout, then I know that I have to, do this percentage.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird because it feels like you should be able to do one set of math to get that, but you're actually doing two sets of math, one on the picture to get the overall scale, and then one to scale the template. It's not hard math, but it is.
What I'll usually do, I know what is, Dave, you might know the answer to this. What is the environment inside Illustrator? It's like 10 feet by 10 feet, or can it be any size you want?
I don't know if it's grown or not. Yeah, I'm not real sure.
But I'll bring anything.
And it's way more than 10 feet by 10 feet. I'm fairly certain.
Maybe, I mean, like, I assume, like, if somebody's going to lay out like a building and it's like 100-foot banner, I would assume that you could make it bigger. But like the default size is the size I'm talking about, because I've never really gone outside the default size. But what I will do in the environment of Illustrator is make anything as big as it needs to be, even if it's way off my palette, and then I could then break it down into bite-sized pieces. Say, for instance, for a 4x8 sheet of plywood, if I was going to do a CNC cutout, or 4x4, or 3x4 for the laser cutter. So I'll leave it sized in the environment on Illustrator and then break pieces of it off to bring into scalable, cuttable sizes for my equipment. That's usually how I do it. For instance, I did the series where I made the United States, and I found a good map of the United States with a fat line, and I brought it into Illustrator, and I did a what do you call that? An image trace. So it made that black line a little bit more muddy, because when you do an image trace, it turns all your blacks into vectors. But sometimes it also softens them, which for type is a bad thing, but for a big image of a loosely bandsaw cut United States, it was perfect, because I printed it out and tiled it. And every time I cut out one of the states, I made sure that I was just inside that black line, so that I know it would puzzle close enough to the next state over. And so the gap between it becomes the black line in my image. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but I did have to scale up the United States up to 8 feet. And I tiled it in A4 paper on my printer and printed it all out. Dave?
I don't know if you guys have seen this. This is related and slightly non-related, but typically, like, I've been doing drawer organizers, and so if I need to get the scale of like a square and a screwdriver, I'll throw them on a piece of paper of a known size, like an 8x10, and I'll take a photo of it. I'll take that photo into Photoshop, and then I'll do a perspective fix of the paper, so I know
100%.
Yeah,
I do that all the time. Yeah,
and then I'll take that, I'll bring it into Illustrator, and then I know that paper is 8.5 by 11 or whatever, and I'll then scale that, and so that gives me the exact size of the tools that I'm going to cut out and make drawer organizers. Shaper has this new framing tool. Have you seen this? Yeah. And I wish it was bigger, because I would probably buy it. But it's basically like looks like a picture frame, and it's got markings on there. You put whatever you want inside there. You take a photo of it within their app, and their app does all of those calculations, the perspective fix and the scaling all in one. And it's pretty brilliant.
It's cool, yeah.
Yeah.
And I do a very similar thing. Remember how much fun we had talking about cutting mats last week? I'll lay a tool on a cutting mat. The cutting mat with the 1x1 inch increments, and so I'll lay out a grid in Illustrator 1x1. That's enough to get me to my perspective and everything sorted back to square, and then I know exactly how big my cutout. That's if I'm going to like laser cut a silhouette to hold an object or something.
Yeah, I mean, just to add another to that same thing, I do the same thing in Fusion. You can bring in an image as a decal, and then you can set the scale. So if you know that there's like a 1 inch square thing in the image, you can select that square and it will scale it on screen to the scale of your project. So it's a great way to be able to trace around something. It's the same process, but that doesn't correct for the perspective stuff. You would still have to do that outside of it. So I feel like the Shaper tools, I haven't used any of their new software stuff that they've been coming out with lately, but it seems like they're going really far in making good usable design tools that are cheap or free or something. Do you have experience with them, David?
I don't know. I've been I'm subscribed to their YouTube channel, and I follow them on a couple social media sites just to keep up, because you're right, I think they are doing some really cool stuff. Like, for me, Illustrator and Photoshop is just natural. I've been using these tools for like 25 years, but somebody who's just getting into this, these programs are like 30 years old. They're really like it just builds complexity over all these years. And so I think it's kind of cool that somebody's coming along like, here's just a simplified version of that, and this is
Yeah,
all
they've taken the one tool out of Illustrator that everyone's always using, like us.
yeah.
And yeah, the Sean works at Shaper. Sean's going to be here for Maker Camp. He's going to spend a couple days with me, so I'll pick his brain while he's here and ask him about the apps, and I'll report back.
Cool.
Shaper Sean, if anybody knows Shaper Sean, that's what we call him.
I met him somewhere, WorkbenchCon or something.
Yeah.
So after I got all the scale figured out for the thing, it was really cool because you can cut obviously any papercraft stuff with a knife, and that was my plan originally. But as I was laying this thing out and scaling it up, I'm like, these pieces are huge, and the laser is really good at making really good straight cuts. And so we have these big 36-inch square pieces of cardboard at the office, like a big stack of them that we got for making boxes and stuff. And so I threw those on the Thunder Laser and just imported the PDF, scaled it up 205%, and it cut all the pieces perfectly. It was, I did have to figure out a couple of things, like where the fold lines were. I just did a couple of tests to figure out how to cut through the top layer of a corrugation and not the bottom layer, so you have a score line through cardboard. Yeah. And there's even like tools built into it for perforation, so it'll do, it'll cut and then not cut and then cut and then not cut, so you can make perforated.
That would be a different colored layer in Lightburn, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Are there? I just had to ship some weird things lately. I'm like, man, I don't have a box that fits this, and so I'm always like, I'll wait for Amazon to come in a couple days, and I'll use one of those boxes. Is there a free tool for a box making thing where you can say, I want this height, this width, and depth?
You could use MakerCase to get your overall sizes, and it lays it out. Then you would have to kind of line them up so that they overlap, but you could totally do that. I actually found a video when I was looking for the cardboard settings. I'll see if I can find this video. This lady was making her own custom boxes on her Thunder Laser, and I was watching it for the settings, the actual like power settings and stuff. But she goes through the entire process of making custom boxes. I'll put a link to it once I find it. But yeah, you can totally do that. And
funny, I did a package design video before lasering, so I should revisit that. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, so I got these pieces cut, and it went super well. I got the whole thing built, and I'm waiting on some electronics to finish it off, but it looks really cool. After I did all of that work, I got it painted, I got it everything. I was looking at it, and you can still kind of see the corrugations within the cardboard on the surface. That's just how cardboard is, right? And it's not a big deal for this project, but as I was looking at it, I realized, I don't know why I didn't think of foam core in the first place, but it would be a perfect replacement for cardboard in this. It's almost the exact same thickness. You can cut it on a laser, has all the same gluability and all that type of stuff, but it doesn't have the corrugations on the inside. So the faces, all these big flat faces on this thing, would be perfectly smooth. So
I was under the impression that you shouldn't cut foam core on a laser. Am I wrong?
Apparently you can, because I looked it up the other day, and people are like, "Oh yeah, it works great. There's barely anything to it." Because I kind of thought the same thing. It seems like styrofoam you wouldn't want to cut, but found quite a few references to people doing it, and nobody was, screaming at them for being unsafe or anything. So I can't prove that, but I feel like that would be a really good option. What you got there, Jimmy? You're on mute.
Talking about laser cutting, when I'm going to a meetup for Carhartt in Detroit, and you got to bring something. They're going to do like a, what do you call that? Like everybody brings something to give away.
You made a
giveaway
square.
So I made a little 30-60 triangle. That's not quite perfectly 30-60, but don't tell anybody.
One of the things that I've done with my laser a long time ago is I cut a square just like what you're showing, but I made one for segments. So when I want to cut segments on my table saw for the lathe, I've got one that's a 12 segment jig.
And
then I got one that's a 36, and it's just it's precise, and it's just ready to go. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, that's smart. What was I going to suggest? I was showing you this because this is cast acrylic. Now I wanted to ask, since we're on laser cutting for a second, I can cut this. It's fairly smelly, but it's not. it doesn't leave that taste in your mouth like you're being poisoned to death.
Those are the ones you're not supposed to cut.
Cast acrylic?
Like, no. Cast acrylic is fine. You're probably cutting like PVC or something.
Yeah.
That will kill you. Don't
regular,
do that.
like regular plexiglass. And then I also have a lot of Lexan, so I googled Lexan. You can't cut Lexan either on there because it like blocks out certain colors.
Yeah.
It breaks the light up and it doesn't work. So cast acrylic cuts beautifully. Mm-hmm. Regular acrylic, I know that in Chinatown in New York, all the students would always get letters cut on. I think acrylic looks pretty good, but it gives you that bad taste in your mouth. So make sure your thing is vented outside, not like me. Mine's vented into the shop. I can't commit to cutting a hole in the wall. That's the problem.
There's also
it might be worth it.
Some of those things are toxic, but some of them also are not good for your laser because the fumes in there will fog up your lenses and mirrors.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
Yep.
But more importantly, your health.
Yeah. It'll fog up the inside of your lungs. That's a bad thing.
That's bad.
Yeah. So
never do that.
The helmet thing has come out really well. I'm pretty excited to show it off, but I wanted to throw that out. Anybody I don't know that I'll talk about the foam core thing in the video. I should, but I don't know that there's a spot for it. But if you're going to make anything like this and you're looking to cut, verify that it's okay on a laser first. But I think it's a really good option for this type of thing. So if I do anything like this in the future, I'll use foam core instead. And you can get it in all different colors and stuff too. So having a base color rather than just cardboard brown might be helpful, But anyway, did we have a topic? I know we talked about a few things.
Before we go into the topic, I want to get Jimmy's reaction on his own video.
What video?
Oh,
the Never Do That video.
Yes, because I really, really enjoyed that video. And,
thank you.
And
thank you.
I was. Did everybody get it? Were there any people who had a negative reaction?
A lot of people. Well, yeah, a lot of people like, I can't believe you would show these techniques. Everybody wants to see an alternative way to do it safely. At the very end of the video, this is how I know people didn't watch the whole thing, because they'd be like, I can't. At the very end of the video, I said, if anything you see or do, it feels uncomfortable, don't do it. It's that simple. There's always alternative methods to go to a safer way of doing anything. I did a lot of tricks with the angle grinder. I was like, use a file and a hacksaw. You get the same results, and it's much safer. And if you're going to do something on the miter saw, do it on the bandsaw. It's a safer alternative. And if that's scary, then get a handsaw. So I did say that at the very end, some people appreciated that. But most people, 95% of the comments were like, this is funny. I'm going to make sure I never do any of these cool techniques that you just taught me how to do. Because I have all these tips that, for those that don't know, I have all these tips that I could never really show in a legitimate way, even though some people are like, what are you talking about? You do these all the time. Some people laughed. There's a lot of tips that I want to show, but I can't really show. So I did a video that says, never do this. So I show the tip, exactly how it works, and I say, don't ever do this. It's too dangerous. What else can I do in this world? What else can I show it?
Yeah.
They are too dangerous if you don't have the skill set or the confidence or the understanding. A lot of the things I've done, you'll notice my hands are completely away from the blade. Some people did compliment me and say, he's showing you how not to do things, but if you notice, his hands are far enough away from the blade to avoid a kickback or whatever. And a lot of these techniques are born out of just being hasty on a job site. I spent a lot of time on construction sites, and this piece of plywood doesn't fit in the closet because whoever did the sheetrock did a horrible job putting the sheetrock in. So I got to take it to the table saw and free cut a curve off of the corner of it, then bring it in and put it in. And so most of those techniques really came out of just working on a construction site. I did some finished carpentry work while I was at school, and every day was just taking risks on the table saw, with job site saw, which is really super dangerous in general. And that's just how I learned a lot of these techniques. And then when you're putting up certain walls and doors and you need wedges, and you're like, all the wedges you get, you put 6 wedges together to get the wedge you want, and you just go to the table saw and cut a wedge you need that's 6 wedges all in one versus having a pile of little skinny shims. All this type of stuff is just out of necessity. But a lot of people enjoyed it. And I put part 1. Honestly, I think I've gotten all the crazy, dangerous tips out of my system. I don't know if there's any more, but I'm sure they'll come up.
I don't believe that for a second.
As they come up, I got to remember them.
I thought for sure you were going to do the bandsaw where you would do some carving and shaving.
I thought about that. I could do that in part 2 because I mean I always show that as like a technique that you could do, but do it this way. So one video I'm telling you how to do it, and the second video I'm telling you not to do it. But I thought it might be a little paradox. But what were you going to say, Dave? I cut you off.
I was just going to say, because if you don't know, like I see you doing shaving, and I've seen in Sam Malouf videos, he does all the shaving on the bandsaw. But if you don't know, you got to have a point that's always on the table.
That's right.
Otherwise,
you can't carve in free space.
You can't carve in free space, otherwise it'll throw it.
Yeah.
And I just remember early on, I've had the bandsaw pull things from my hands before because I just didn't know. I wasn't aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my bandsaw video, I show how if you cut a circle, it'll go bananas. You try and cut a baseball. It's like I joked in a makerspace I was at last week. I was like, every student always shows up with a baseball, wants to cut a baseball in half or a golf ball, and they don't realize how dangerous that possibly could be. And in my video, I cut a puck. Try to cut a puck sideways, and the puck goes bananas. It just spins up 100 or 1,000 RPMs and just starts spinning on the table and bounces around. And in my video, it bounced out of camera and then bounced back into camera and bounced off the camera. It's really funny. That's in my things not to do on the bandsaw video.
I was going to mention, before you started talking about the round things, the one kind of crazy experience I've had on a bandsaw was I tried to cut a globe in half. Same thing.
Boy.
And so it's cardboard, right, in a sphere, and as soon as those teeth hit it, it just kept grabbing it and pulling it and twisting it away from me. And there's no way to grab it once it's going. You just got to shut it off and let it spin and let it do its thing. But, yeah.
Another thing, I never showed this. I never showed, I'm going to cough. One thing that I never showed, which I should show in my next Don't Do This video, but there's no real tip there. It's just really never do this. I should do a video that says really, really never do this, then people will know. You can't cut fabric on a bandsaw. Has anybody ever tried to cut fabric on a bandsaw? Some fabrics will grab. So if you imagine the tooth has to go through the piece of material, but the material itself has to support that cut so that the next tooth can then take more of it away. If you go to cut fabric, it'll just grab the strings in the fabric, the thread, and just literally pull it down into the saw. So you go to cut, if you got something that has like loose fabric on it and you think, oh, I'm just going to cut through that and get to the meat of what I want to cut. In some cases, the fabric will immediately get bound up in the blade and the saw will get completely locked up and frozen. And that's something you learn the hard way. Or like if you go to cut like a wire or anything with strands in it, those strands will get hooked up on the teeth of the blade. They won't necessarily cut through it.
Okay, so just devil's advocate. If you had to do that, would adding another surface on top of it to compress the fabric down or pull it completely tight perpendicular to the blade?
I would sandwich it between pieces, above and below.
Okay.
Definitely more below than anything, because then as the blade is cutting, it's making a tiny little, what do you call that? When you stick the saw blade up through the
little curve.
The
cut,
perfect cut. What do they call it? Like a perfect zero clearance cut.
Clearance, yeah.
Oh, I see.
It would basically be creating a zero clearance cut. If you go to stick it in and there's like gaps on either side of your little surface plate there that is meant to kind of protect the bearings, it'll pull down into it. If you cut it with a piece of material, a sacrificial piece of material, the fabric will cut better. And here's another tip, since we're on the end, but don't do that. Did you ever cut acrylic and the acrylic gets all muddied behind the cut and it gets all jammed up in the hole? Cut it on top of a piece of material. I got to write this down for the next video. Cut it on top of a piece of sacrificial material, and then that melted part will get pulled down through and it won't become a hindrance. It won't stay stuck on the acrylic. It'll get mixed with the wood sawdust and go away. Hold on, I'm writing this down. Fabric on the bandsaw.
Don't do this part 2. Cool. Well, does that satisfy your interest about his?
It very much
his
so
video.
Does.
We did have a topic, I think, didn't we?
Maybe.
It was things we've never done. Things we've never done.
Yeah.
So that's the topic, as loose or as tight as we want to make it. So, things you've never done. skills, action sports. I don't know. What you got?
Food.
Okay, things I've never done.
Okay.
I've never bungee jumped, and I've never jumped out of a plane, and I never will. No reason whatsoever to put yourself in that danger. Zero. I would rather hold a 2x6 with my teeth on a chop saw making wedges than jump out of an airplane.
Okay.
Bob, your turn.
Okay, well, hang on. Let's take that thing right there. David, have you ever done either one of those things?
No, I have not. No, I don't think that I will. I don't want to. I don't like roller coasters. We went to an amusement park this summer, and I hadn't been to one in 25 years, and I won't go to one again. It's just not my thing. So I don't see myself jumping out of a plane anytime soon.
It's completely unnecessary. Bob, how many times have you done it?
I've never jumped out of a plane. I have been bungee jumping.
Yeah.
And it was fun, I guess, but not like, I don't know. You know, I did it once and then that was enough. The jumping out of a plane, I can see the allure, but then when I think about actually doing it and the amount of risk and the amount of potential, just not even just falling and dying, that's one risk, but also landing wrong and breaking everything up to your neck.
Landing on a highway or landing in power lines. Forget it.
So I don't, it's kind of like all of your tool tips. If you were the person who physically knew how to land, how to fall, how to crash into things safely, you had some training there or something, sure, maybe. But I don't have that job site experience to know what I should and shouldn't do. So if I were to jump out of a plane, I will break something eventually. Yeah. And that's not really something I'm interested in doing. So, and the bungee jumping thing, if I hadn't done it as a teenager, I wouldn't do it as an adult.
No, too risky.
So, yeah, that's me. All right, David, what you got?
It's funny that I suggested this, and I can't think of anything. I need a little bit more time. I have never had a taco. I've never had a taco. That's what I'm going to start with. Still. I'm saving it for. A milestone. When we hit 1 million subscribers, I'm gonna eat a taco. I'm gonna do a taco-based project. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. All right, everybody listening, if you're not subscribed, go do it right now.
Thank you.
You're close, Dave, aren't you? You're close.
We're creeping up on 900,000.
Oh, yeah. And your
right
channel's picking up some steam, so I think you're going to get there quicker than you think. It would be funny if you ate a taco made out of just veneer, all laser cut veneer. Somehow do like a camera trick.
Yeah.
That wouldn't count. All right, let's see. Something I've never done. I've never sewn a piece of clothing. I have sewn things, but one of the things on my list long term is to make like a piece of clothing. And I know that sounds not very exciting, but that seems so otherworldly to me to even understand how
I'm with you. Yeah.
It goes about
I made a
going
pair of
together
jeans
and how
years
you
ago.
plan for it and all that stuff.
I made a pair of jeans, and the way I did is I took a sacrificial pair that fit me, and I cut it completely apart with an X-Acto. This was way before YouTube. When I was on the big sewing kick, we took in a roommate in my workshop, and she taught me how to sew. She's actually a very famous leather worker. Her name is Agatha Blois. If you look her up, she's made clothes for every rock star in the whole world. And Agatha was in my shop, and she taught me how to sew. She made clothes from scratch. So I was inspired by her. And without taking up too much of a time, she's like, oh, just rip a pair of pants apart and just make it. So I did that completely on my own, and I did make a pair of leather pants that I put on once, and I never put them on again, but it was really more for the technique of learning. So I broke a pair of jeans down to all the various elements and just watched how they were put together as I took them apart. And I only did it once, and it wasn't perfect, but if I'd have done it 3 more times, I probably would have got better at it.
So her name was... It's not Agatha? It's Agatha?
Agatha, yeah, that's how you say it. She'll correct you every time.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, but she's all tatted up, right? She's all crazy tattooed, rock star.
Oh, yeah. Like looking at her, all the people she's worked with and stuff?
Yeah, from Rob Halford to all
Britney
the
Spears.
pop stars. Yeah.
Iggy Pop. There's all sorts of people on here.
She knows everybody. We were close for a minute in the early aughts. And I said to her as a joke, I said, how long do we have to be friends before you get my name tattooed on your cheekbone? And she laughed. She's like, I don't know. We'll figure that one out. she got names and stars tattooed all over. She's bananas, rock star.
Wow. Yeah, so for me, that's one of those things. It's on the list, but I don't even know where to start. And I don't know what I would want to make. It's more of just the idea of being able to do that. Seems really far out there for me. So, and it's funny because growing up, my mom, she still sews, but she sewed a ton growing up. She made me and all of us all sorts of little outfits, and my kids, when they were little, still wore some of the same outfits that my mom made and stuff. You remember jams from the 80s?
I rock some jams.
Oh, yeah. So she made me, like, my own jams, with that were cheaper, but fabrics, from the fabric store that were, like, Hawaiian looking or whatever. So my kids got to wear those when they were young.
Did your local library have sewing patterns that you could borrow?
Oh, I don't know.
Ours did, yeah.
Maybe I never even, like, considered that. Maybe that's what I should do, is just get a pattern.
I remember going to JCPenney and my mother, like, looking through. Even though my mother hardly ever made clothes growing up, she did occasionally buy them with the intentions of doing them, but she never really did. I remember growing up, we always had a sewing machine in the house, and nobody ever touched it. My mom would play on it once in a while. And then when I got to art school, I made it. I was like, you know what, let me play with that thing. And that was literally where I began to learn how to sew. I just started teaching myself, but then working with a gaffer 20 years later, she was an incredible inspiration to show me specific details.
Yeah, I think having somebody there to kind of like, just make sure you do it this way. Those little things would, I think, probably make it way more successful than me just sitting there with a sewing machine that I barely understand how it works and just going for it.
Get a Weaver 303. It's an unbelievable machine.
Writing this down.
It's like $1 million too, right?
No, it's only like $1,500. It's such an incredible machine. If you want to learn how to sew, it does lightweight. It does somewhat heavyweight. It's not going to sew saddle leather, but you don't need that most often.
It's only the price of one mortgage payment.
What is it? $1,500, right?
It's $1,200, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty decent.
Yeah. You could just get one month behind, but you can sew.
The 205, which is the big heavy industrial machine that I have from them too, that's about $4,500. It's a little bit more pricey.
What's the difference in the price? Do you know?
One's you said one's $1,300 or $1,400, and the other one's about $5,000.
I mean, what?
The difference in the value of it.
Yeah.
For one, you can sew, like the smaller one will sew simpler, thinner stuff, and the big one will sew like 1 inch thick through leather.
Oh, okay.
Including all your fingers and your toes, if you're not careful. So you could sew that like thick hide. It'll just punch right through it. It's got a tremendous amount of... And all machines nowadays, on the subject of sewing for one more minute, machines now all have stepper motors in them. Where in the past, they had a freewheeling clutch, and you had to touch that treadle. As you touch that treadle, you're biting into the clutch. And by closing that clutch, you get the momentum of the sewing machine. Nowadays, there's nothing running. The light's on. You could dial it down really slow so your stitch will feed slowly. Versus in the old days, if you hit it hard, you get the full girth of that flywheel that's going. And and it runs out of your hands and scares the hell out of you. So,
all right,
get a machine with a stepper motor.
All right, so round 2. Jimmy, what's something else you've never done?
Ski. Never
really?
skied. Never.
Same.
In high school, we went on a ski trip, me and my dad and my brother and my sister. And my brother John had skied, and I said, oh, well, let me see what this is all about. I remember clicking my feet into the skis. I got in the boots, I clicked, and I skied about 8 feet. And I stopped, and I unclicked myself and walked back up to the top, and I said, I'm not doing this. I handed the skis to my brother. I took the boots off, and I said, I'll never ski ever again. So I skied about 8 feet, because I just pictured myself sliding 100 miles an hour into a tree with zero control.
I mean, that's part of the fun.
I'll do that in a car.
It's gonna happen.
The need for speed is fun in a car. It's like you got a fighting chance.
I gotcha. Yeah.
But the need for speed on skis, The older I get, the more I think to myself, if it's not going to net result in like a product, but that's part of my OCD. It's if there's not going to be any product. It's funny. The girl I'm dating said to me recently. She's like, "When is the last time you went to the beach?" I said, "I don't know, 25 years ago." She's like, "Nothing good happens at the beach, right? You can't come home with anything." I was like, "Nope." Except sand in your bathing suit.
That's a really interesting point, because this is something I struggle with as well, is valuing an experience based on its output. Yeah. I do this all the time, and I don't think it's good for us, but I understand the tendency because I do the same thing. Yeah. I think there is something to be learned through experience that doesn't have a physical productive output. Not necessarily skiing, but going to things that you just walk away from it with, like, I did that, and now I know that I was a part of that thing, or I was whatever. And as I've gotten older, that's something I've really tried to prioritize, especially with my kids. Like, me going to soccer games and stuff, like, I don't get anything out of that financially or anything, but there's something really important about just being a part of things that are happening, even if you're not the one that's necessarily like doing it.
I do it.
Yeah.
I do it. And, it's funny, like getting to know somebody new constantly. Oh, have you seen this show? Have you seen that show? I go, nope. Nope. Have you seen this? Nope. But you never, ever watch TV? I go, I just peruse YouTube videos. That's it. Never. Yeah. And it's been a struggle to try and... Somebody keeps asking for a television in this house. It's like, I don't need a TV. Yeah. And it's funny, like when it comes to television... And I said it remember I used to joke about Macintosh. I'm like, oh, wow, iPhotos is great. This is really cool. Wow. And these are each one of the updates. This is cool. Oh, look at this new feature. Wait a minute. What is this? Wait a minute. Why? Where is my files going? Oh, what happened? What? Never use iPhoto again. This is what happens with technology. It's like TV. It's like, oh, put antennas on the top. Oh, add tinfoil to get better reception. Oh, wow, this cable hooks to the thing. Oh, that's great. Wait a minute, I got to program the TV? Wait a minute, auto-programming? What do you mean? There's not just 4 channels anymore? There's 700 channels? I don't need a TV anymore. Like, I've technologied myself out of so many programs and physical things to the point where it's just like, I remember I bought this big TV, and it's like, you got to program the channels in. I thought to myself, I remember the moment looking through the instructions that I didn't just plug the TV in and turn it on and hook the cable to the back, that HBO cable thing.
the cable.
I'm like, I have to program this. I remember literally the wind in my sails for television went completely out the window, and I never turned that brand new TV on ever. I had a VHS in the bottom, and that's what I would use it for. If I have to plug a TV in, unless there's a 15-year-old around, I'm not turning it on because they all know how to do it. I won't have any idea how to do it.
The problem with TVs today is we got a new LG TV a year ago, and the first thing you have to do with a new TV is do not connect it to Wi-Fi. Automatic updates you need to turn all that off, because it would want to do updates all the time, and I just want to watch my freaking YouTube video or whatever, and then LG ads. Like, oh, really? It was like, check out our whatever. And I'm like, no, this is my TV. This is a thing that I should just be able to turn on.
You gotta laugh. It reminds me, the other day I was at a friend's house, and she's got the remote control for the Apple TV. And I haven't used Apple TV since it first came out. I got the first generation 10 years ago. I never got another one. I haven't seen it since. And the remote, like, you got to swipe. The thumb is a key. The swipe. It's like a trackpad for the thumb. And I have no idea what I was like. I just put the remote down. I was like, I can't select it. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just put this thing. It's got 2 buttons and like a big flat area that your thumb's supposed to slip and slide on. And 2 buttons. I screamed from the other room, like, how do I turn the volume down? Oh, the plus and the minus. I'm like, are you sure? I don't want to change the channel. The show's getting good.
That was one of the worst things Apple ever made. They've since made a better one, but that remote drove me bonkers with the flat little...
No. It completely repels me. It repels me, like all that technology. But again, maybe I'm just getting old. Yeah. But I remember when it was simple. I remember when it was easy to use. Yeah.
Get off my lawn. Man, are you guys done complaining about TVs now?
I bought my dad an iPad when iPads before phones. And he called me. He goes, "There's no instructions in this thing." I said, "Just play with it. You'll figure it out." He called me 2 hours later. He's like, "I figured it out. It's amazing." Yeah. Look, he was so excited. This was obviously 15 years ago. But
my dad had the same reaction about like when he got an iPad. He's like, "There's no instructions. Where's the instructions? There's got to be something." I'm like, "No, you just figure it out." And it didn't make any sense to him. He's like, "It's got to have instructions."
Well, I mean yeah, that's a pattern that we're taught from a pretty young age, that you read the instructions to understand how something works, and then as people get better at making software specifically, that you don't need instruction, you can be walked through. Pretty big difference there. So you've never skied either, David?
Correct.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, I totally would. I just never had the opportunity.
Huh. So I skied a few times. Maybe just a couple of times, and then, as a teenager, I was like, snowboarding looks cooler, so I'm going to try snowboarding, and I did that a few times, and it's really hard, and I fell and hurt my butt a lot. Ooh. And ran into people and stuff like that. Then, at some point in college, I went on a ski trip with our college group of people from our church, and I didn't want to snowboard because I didn't want to get hurt again, but they had these short skis, so this is the way to do it. If you're going to go ski now as an adult who's never done it before, they have short skis. I guess they still have them. They're about 2 feet long, and you clip into them the same way and everything, but instead of like, I'm going to go straight really fast for a long time, it's like having rollerblades on. Like, you can just turn your feet, and you can step, and you can walk, and they don't, it's totally different. It was for me, and it made it so much more fun. I know a lot of people like skiing for whatever, because they have history with it. I did not really enjoy skiing, but those short skis, that's the way to do it. You can walk around, you can turn, you can jump over things, you can step over the kid that falls down right in front of you, and you're not going to stab yourself in the face with the ski and stuff like that. And you don't have to have poles because you can just walk around with it, so they're a lot of fun. So that would be my recommendation.
Well, I've never rollerbladed,
so David,
but that's not my next one. Yeah.
Okay. I used to rollerblade a lot.
Yeah, it was.
I used to rollerblade a lot.
What?
I was really good at rollerblading. It was like a thing to do in the city. Like, you go on a date with a girl and you could rollerblade on a summer night. It was fun.
Tell me if I got this right. I am picturing you rollerblading in cut-off jean shorts.
Hot pink.
Of course. Because me and like I said, me and some friends, a couple of guy friends I was friends with. It's like a thing. It's like, I didn't cause havoc like some of the punks that would do rail slides on storefronts. I didn't do any of that stuff. I did know those guys. There was a couple guys.
I was one of those guys.
Yeah, I wasn't one of those. I would just like, let's go check out the Statue of Liberty, and it's like a good 7 or 8 miles. It's a real good exercise. You come up the West Side Highway by where Casey Neistat always is, and you cross 14th Street. It was, for me, it was a real big workout and a thing to do with like a new girl you're dating. It was always fun on a summer night. So, and I just happened to be good at rollerblading. I was okay ice skater, but then when the rollerblades came out and we started rollerblading, playing rollerblade hockey when I was in middle school and high school, I just took a real good liking to rollerblades. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I didn't care about sports, but I enjoyed the exercise.
It's way easier than ice skating, for sure. All right, David, what's your next one?
I've never gone proper camping.
Like tent camping,
staying in a tent, campfire, no electricity. I've never done it. I have nothing against it. I totally would. I've just never.
It's horrible.
I have slept in a tent in the backyard.
It's horrible.
Yeah. It is not.
It is horrible.
What is so horrible about that? Not having electricity?
I remember once me and Taylor went camping, and she was all gung-ho, and we went to some like mountain, and I was like, I'm not climbing to the top of the mountain with all this stuff. I said, I'm going to camp right here. Camped right where we were, and she's like, I'm going to the top of the mountain. She went up with Bear to the top of the mountain and came back down. By the time she came down, it was pouring rain out. She's like, we still have time to get a hotel room. I was like, let's go. Packed the whole tent up. Went got a hotel room. We didn't even spend the night outside. We did spend the night outside a couple times over the last 15 years, but it's so much nicer to be in a hotel. And I have that camper we took out, and we did spend a couple nights in that, but it's not a tent. It's not really the same thing as being in a tent.
We have this dream of one day being able to afford like a camper, but it has to have toilet facilities. That's like I am a person of convenience, and so
Right.
I nothing against camping. I'll do it if the opportunity is there and it's at a really cool place. But yeah, I've just never.
I've been looking, believe it or not, I've been looking for an Airstream or a camp or something, but they're impossible to find in good shape. You could spend $50,000 to get a perfect one. And the only reason I would want it, I would find a location on the 40 acres and put it there as a place, as a destination to hike to on the property.
Nice.
I don't want to take it camping.
Yeah.
I just want to, it's like a tiny home. I just want it for a tiny home on the property. And that's something I've been thinking about. But $10,000-$15,000 for like a 27-foot Airstream, and there's literally nothing inside. It's like, oh, can't finish, don't have time to finish. You know, it's just impossible. I know Bourbon Malt is making one right now. I haven't followed up on it in a minute, but I remember he got it back from the mechanic. He did the right thing. He had the mechanic do everything perfect, and then he's doing all the interior. But I'm not into that really, because it's I'd rather build a house than build a tiny house. But I do want to buy one just to have eventually when the right one comes along.
I would encourage you, David, to go camping.
All right.
Just, like find a local camp.
He said he's never going camping.
Hey, you should. No, don't listen to Jimmy. Don't listen to him.
It's horrible.
You should just
it's like
find.
the
It is
worst
not.
thing.
It is not.
It's the
Stop.
worst thing you could do to yourself.
Find a local state park or something that has a campground. Don't hike out into the woods.
Oh, let me
or
tell you
anything
something
first
about
time.
state
Hush.
park.
Be quiet. I'm talking. Stop. So you find a state park and just drive in.
Make sure you
set up
book
a
a parking spot 18 months in advance.
They are kind of hard to find, actually, spots like within state parks, depending on the time of year. But like, just drive in, set up tent right next to the car. You got a fire pit there. Bring something comfy to lay on, because that's really the worst part of it, is like not having a pad or something like that.
And then when you hear
lose
a
a lot
bear
of your
growl,
heat through. You
in the
lose a
middle
lot
of
of
the
your
night,
heat through the
get in the car.
Hush. lose a lot of your heat through the ground. So make sure that you've got something in between you, because that will make it really uncomfortable. But when you wake up in the morning on a nice cool morning and you just hear outside, and you got some sun coming through the trees, sun coming through it is really nice. Not something you want to do all the time.
You haven't been eaten by a grizzly bear. You wake up and you go, "Wow, I'm glad I'm alive. I'm glad I made it through the night. Let's get a hotel tonight."
Anyway,
I'm just playing. I've experienced that. It's nice.
You have not. You just said you never had. You're lying. Ignore him. All right, so
to my bedroom
obviously,
window. That's really
I have been camping a few times. Not a ton, honestly, but I really do enjoy it, and it's not something we've done for a very long time, since we've had kids. So it's almost 16 years ago. It's like since we've camped outside. But it is something we always talk about doing, and something I would like for my kids to really get the experience of, because I think it is it's just a different perspective on how you spend time in nature, or how you spend a night. Growing up and always going to a hotel tells you how you spend nights away from home. Occasionally, if that's in a tent, it gives you a little different perspective. So I one time went camping in Red River Gorge, which is in Kentucky. Beautiful place. And a friend of mine and I were going to go climb for the weekend. And so we drove after school, drove couple hours to get there. We got there and it was pouring down rain. It was like 7 or 8 at night. It was already dark, pouring down rain, and we had to set up camp. And it was one of the worst camping experiences I've ever had, having to set up a tent in the rain. And so by the time you get inside, everything is already wet.
Of course.
But it was also one of the most memorable trips because of that moment, because every other time I set up a tent, it was just like work. This was, wow, this is crazy. It's like blowing every direction. This is hard to do. It's wet. I was cold all night, but I woke up and had a pretty good experience out of it. And I got to climb all weekend, which was a lot of fun. All right, so my last one here, things I've never done. I've never rebuilt an engine or rebuilt a carb.
Neither have I.
And rebuilding a carburetor, as someone who just, there's a wall between me and every bit of knowledge about it. It feels like it's something super complicated and precise, and there's like 100 little screws that you have to turn, a 16th of a turn to get it to do the thing and the right whatever. and then as soon as you run the engine, it's going to gum up and it's going to be all off, and you're going to have to. So to me, it seems completely like another thing that I just know nothing about. And I know the reality of it is, if I actually dove into it, it probably wouldn't be that hard because I know a lot of mechanics, and they're not like geniuses. They're just smart people. So
what are you saying about mechanics?
No, it's not a dig. I mean, they don't have like. No. What I'm saying is you don't have to have like an engineering degree to understand how to build a carb. They're just people who are good at their job.
I think people are born with technology that can handle an engine, and Dave, you have it. You're born with the ability to just look at an engine and figure it out. To me, it's always been somewhat of a mystery. I'm a little bit more comfortable with engines and carburetors in my older age, but as a kid, I just like always defer to my friends around me that were geniuses when it came to that stuff. Yeah, people are born with that innate ability to take apart an engine and change the compression and put it back together. I never had it.
In the limited experience that I have with this, it's funny how like the carburetor. The little carburetor is way more complex than the big block of the engine, because all of the magic happens in that little carburetor.
Yeah, Dustin's video is really good. He did a carburetor.
Yeah, it's a great understanding of how one works and how
smarter everyday carburetor video from about a year ago.
Yeah, that actually explained how it worked, and I don't remember it all, but for the first time I was like, oh, got it. Like, I didn't mean I could fix one, but you know. Yeah, so that's the thing that I just don't have in either one of those things. I have zero experience with. I think my entry into that is my old Vespa needs to be worked on to get it running again. I think the carburetor is the culprit. So it's a small, simple, simple carburetor, as simple as they can be. And I think that's the place where I need to start do a bunch of research, take it apart, and rebuild it as an example, as a test. And if it won't run, then that's fine. It already doesn't run, so I'm not out anything. But it might make it run, which would be really cool. So that's where I'm going to start with that.
It's cool.
So Jimmy, you don't have any experience with either one of those things?
No, I never. I mean, I've fixed cars, obviously, and I've gotten them running, but I've never swapped an engine. And I've never dismantled the carburetor down to... When I had the Cadillac, I bought a new carburetor and put it on the Cadillac, the antique 67 convertible that I had for a minute. I gave it to my friend because I just didn't have the time to work on it. But I was able to change the carburetor and get it running. But I didn't take the old one apart and try and rebuild it, because I could have bought a rebuild kit. But those whole four-barrel carburetors are really complicated, it looks like, anyway, to me. So it's like, I'll just buy a new one for $500 and put it on there and send the old one back for like another core charge and whatever. Those are always a simpler approach. And then I have my 69 Chevy step-side pickup truck, and my buddy always says to me, Art Clement, he's on Instagram, he's an engine guru, he always says to me, let's put a V8 in that thing. I'm like, what would I need to do? He's like, I go, you just change the transmission and the transaxle and the blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's easy, it's all just nuts and bolts. I'm like, it's easy.
All you have to do is change like the entire drivetrain.
I see that thing monopolizing all the space in my shop. Once we start, like I want to start it on like a Friday afternoon and finish it on a Sunday evening, versus taking the engine out and waiting for parts, and then all of a sudden it's like, you ever see there's like a meme that goes around, it's like, I could take a perfect, because one thing I've learned about my life, and it's like camera like panning through a garage, it's like, I can take a perfectly good Ford Mustang and make it unusable for 20 years. It's like a joke, and that's one of my fears. That's why I'm obsessively making sure all my cars run and start, and they're all insured and they're all drivable. Even though I never use them, they're all ready to go. Because I have the fear of them.
I like to get my cars and make them not run.
Yeah, apparently.
I'm really good at that.
When the money is right, and if I decide to keep the Impala, I am going to drop in a new crate engine with a fuel injector instead of a carburetor. Oh, nice. I know that's going to drive certain car nerds nuts, but I like the idea of it's more fuel efficient and more powerful, and I don't have to...
And starts every time.
And it starts every time.
Another option, if you don't want to change the entire thing, is you can... I don't know about that car specifically, but on the Land Cruisers, you can buy a EFI conversion, like an electronic fuel injection conversion kit to add on to it. So you basically just replace the carb with this. And I have this for my FJ40, and I was waiting to make a video about putting it on, but now I'm kind of just like wondering if I should just do all the stuff to the 40 and not make videos out of it. But
The thing with
that is an option for engines.
the thing with the Impala now is I drive it once a month, right? And so on a carburetor, there's no fuel in there to get it started, so it takes a long time. You got to pump the gas and you got to start it, and it feels like it's always on the edge of draining the battery completely just before it starts.
Every time. Starter fluid every time. Starter fluid every time. It gets everything going. It gets the juices flowing, so then the gas is where it needs to go by the time the starter fluid gets used up. I have starter fluid in every car. It's like literally like sitting on the front seat of every one of my old cars. Because I never know where the can is, so I bought 10 cans and just put them on the front seat of every car.
It's not a bad idea. Cool. Any other things you've never done you want to throw out? Anyone? You know what we should do? Sometime we should play Two Truths and a Lie. So we all come up with something a couple things we have done that we don't know about each other, and something that we have not done. That's a lie.
I was trying to think of when we were talking about camping earlier, and Bob, you were telling me go camping, and Jimmy, you're telling me to not go camping. I wonder if that's a future video too, where when you have the good and the bad on each shoulder, trying to tell you to do something, not do something. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
You and I should go camping and see how great it is and how much fun it can be. And then you go with Jimmy and you just listen to him complain the whole time and you're like, ah. So it turns out what you do is you just don't go camping with Jimmy.
Yeah, one thing I never did was make a reservation at a national park ever. And I've gotten kicked out of every single one that you go to. Like you get to a national park at 2 in the morning because you don't know where you are in the southwest or the northwest or Yellowstone Park, and you get to it and you're like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted. I just want to I just need refuge. So you get to national park, whatever, Buffalo Bill National Park, whatever the hell it is. You pull into the parking lot and you immediately put the car in park and fall asleep. And at 6 in the morning, some 95-year-old park ranger's tapping on your window going, you need a permit to be here. You can't park there. You're not supposed to park there overnight. I'm like, okay, you'd rather me drive off of a cliff sleeping than at least just have some... You can't park there.
That's what Walmart's for, right?
Yeah.
There's no Walmarts in the mountains, though.
That's true.
You know.
All right. Well, I want to thank our Patreon supporters because they make this show go. Big thanks to everybody over there that helps us out in all the different ways, all the different levels. We also have top supporters that really do go above and beyond. So big thanks to Corey Ward, Albert's Woodworks, Works by Solo, Chad from Mancrafting, Chad's Custom Creations, Rich at Lowen Designs, Odin Leather Goods, Sean Beckner, Scott Oram, The New Janky Workshop, Stu Morrison, Warren Works, Michael Manedgen, The Web Ranch Woodworks, and Crabtree Creative. We also have some new patrons this week, like Calhoun Zabel. No, actually, that's someone who used to be one, and he deleted his. I was looking at the wrong one. So thanks for being on for a while, Calhoun. Also, let's find one that actually... Vino Farm.
Huh?
Vino Farm. Welcome. It's funny that this list shows unpledges and pledges together and doesn't really make a big difference between them. But anyway, we're thankful for all the Patreon supporters. And they all get the after show, which... I guess is not going to have video if this one had video. I don't know. We haven't really thought about that. I don't know how we would do that. But anyway, you can go to patreon.com/makingit to get the after show and to help us out. We would appreciate it very much. Do you guys have anything to recommend this week? Anything new?
I was talking about, I thought I had Apple TV and my Apple TV subscription lapsed because I never watch it. But it was funny. I was at my friend's house the other day and I was flipping around Apple TV and I said, oh, you know what I liked for a minute as far as TV series go? The only thing I actually really ever put on was The Morning Show. Have you guys watched The Morning Show on Apple TV?
I still haven't.
So I didn't see season 2. Okay. I just completely skipped season 2. And so I turned on season 3 the other night. And it is unbelievable the amount of, it literally goes to volume 11 every single episode in every act. And it's unbelievable how they can just keep ramping up the drama.
Can I just...
What were you going to say, Dave?
Season 1, okay, is phenomenal. The finale to season 1 I've had this conversation many times, is I think the greatest episode of television of all time, the finale of season 1.
Whoa.
It was so good. It was powerful. And then we didn't really care for season 2, and we haven't started season 3, and friends of ours, like, it goes back to as good as it was in season 1, so we need to watch season 2.
Yeah, see, I skipped season 2 because I didn't realize that I didn't have Apple TV, but I wasn't looking for it. I didn't care. But the other night, finally, for the first time in 7 years, I sat down to watch TV, and I watched season 1 while I was on the road. I had to do traveling when season 1 came out, and it was when Apple TV first started, and it's like, hey, you want to watch? So I just put it on, like, waiting for an airplane, and I was like, oh, this is cool. So I watched the whole series while I was on a trip, and then I never watched season 2, and then just started watching season 3 the other night. Season 2 is all about COVID, it seems, right? It was like through all COVID.
Yeah.
But season 3 is, it's already, I haven't watched episode 3 yet, but it's crazy.
It's really funny to me. It's weird to me to hear you talking about a TV show that you enjoy watching.
It's crazy.
I mean, no comment on it. It's just interesting because it's something that you've always kind of just like, whatever.
Yeah, no results. I don't get any 3D product out of it.
All right, David, what you got?
I've got 2. We started this episode, and I was like, I don't have anything to pick. Maybe I'll just skip me this week. But I thought of 2 while we were recording. This first one, it's this chair, and it's called the grasshopper chair. And it came up in my Pinterest a while ago, and I pinned it to save it for later. And I was going through some old pins. I'm like, man, that chair is absolutely beautiful. And I go to the product page, and they have a process on making this chair. And it's not on YouTube, it's on their Vimeo. So I'm going to link to the product page. And it's just really cool to see how this chair is made because there's some bent laminations in there and there's some upholstery. And it's fantastic. And then the other pick that I have is a local YouTuber. His channel is called Camping with Sam Bananas. And he just quit his job to do YouTube full time. And his YouTube channel is about camping, which I've never done. And apparently there's this whole camping culture on YouTube, and there's this thing called stealth camping where you just camp in places where you shouldn't camp, which
in the United States is everywhere except for your own backyard.
And Sam's a good guy. I don't quite get the camping culture on YouTube, but I also don't get the gaming culture on YouTube. So maybe it's for you.
Cool. All right. Sam Bananas too.
Yeah, it's a great name.
So mine is new video by Alex, French guy cooking. Alex, he's moving into a new studio, and so he has the first video about getting this new space and doing the demolition on it and starting to. It's going to be a series, probably a pretty significant series of him building this new space into his new studio, and it looks really cool. It's like an old cafe. It's a very French little spot, you know. His old studio was kind of a box, and he made the small box into what he needed it. This one has a little bit more character, and he's doing a bunch of work to it, so who knows what it'll end up looking like. But it's just cool to see people like him who are really creative and really customize things to exactly what they need when they have a blank slate like that. It's really cool. So I'm anxious to see what he does with that space, and excited for him to have a new place with more space and more, kitchen tools and all of the things that he needs. So go check out Alex. You guys got anything else? Anyone? Cool.
No,
guess not. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody.
Never have I ever.
No show next week because David's out of town, but we'll be back.
Oh, next week is Maker Camp. It's going to be hectic for me too, so it's good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Maker Camp. You can come for a day trip if you're in the area. You can come for the weekend if you want to sleep in your car or camp in somebody's property illegally.
Still
the local state park.
Jimmy's front yard. Cool. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.